the story I tell are basically not my story, and at the same time, they are like my story.
It's another episode of Creath and Creations, and today we are speaking with Mr. Oluwaseun Akinlo. He is based in Lagos, but he hails from Ondo State, and he studied fine arts in the University of...
Ladoke, Akintola, University of Technology.
Okay, thank you. So what exactly prompted that, you going to refine your skills in school?
Initially, I actually wanted to study medicine.
Wow.
I was actually studying medicine, and I have this flair for theater arts because right from growing up, I've always been on stage, dancing, drama, and stuff like that. So I like, medicine is not really my thing. Medicine is more like a burden on my shoulder because my mom is into medical line, and my dad was like, you have to do medicine too. So getting to university, all of a sudden, the school gave me arts.
I don't understand.
The school gave me art.
They gave you art.
They gave me art.
And you are going for medicine.
Medicine.
How do your parents feel?
It wasn't funny. My mom wasn't happy. More like, you're still crossing, right? I say, yes, I will cross in 200 level. And I tried crossing 200 level and I had a good result. And the department cleared me that they can't release someone who has a good result. Though I've seen my name in the other department I'm going to, but all of a sudden, I was withdrawn back.
You wrote back.
Yes, I was withdrawing back.
Why? How?
I don't know. And I've already started receiving lectures and doing everything over there. And all of a sudden, your name is not here anymore. Go back to your department.
Is there a conspiracy sort of thing that happened? That's why.
I don't know. Maybe it's God's intervention because probably my brother wanted to study art in school. My dad didn't allow him to study art in school. So the whole journey ended with me. Same thing happened to my mom. So my mom wanted to study art in school. She ended up studying medicine. So I think I'm the last hope for the art in the family.
That's very ironic because she wanted to study art and they gave her medicine.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the journey was very interesting. They gave me art. I'm like, I'm going to cross. But along the line, it's just A4 paper. Let me just do it and leave the school. And probably I'll go to another school to do theater art because I was very, very young. But along the line, all of a sudden, I just fell in love with it.
Okay, you naturally wanted to study medicine. You didn't get it.
I wanted to study theater arts.
Theater arts.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me. So let's just say aside from theater arts or medicine, is there any profession that you think you would have gone for aside from that whole?
Probably messing people's mind up, maybe psychology. Yeah. Just to mess people up.
It reflects me at work too sometimes.
I just like knowing what people think and what's people's perspective on maybe anything around them. What's your viewing point? If I'm having these thoughts, in what way will you react to this? Why you're doing that? I'm actually calculating 10 steps ahead of you. Okay, if I'm going to say this, what is this? How is this person going to react to what I'm going to say? And what will be the response? So I think that I've actually also influenced my kind of art I create too, because I always want to question. And then after I question, the next thing I ask myself is, what next? What next? You have done this, what next? What are you going to present to the world tomorrow? What are you going to present to the world tomorrow? So it's not like a question for myself. I'm criticizing my own self. Yeah.
What's it like, your creative process from the beginning of creating an art piece to the end?
The process is very, very emotional. It's more like you have to connect with people. You have to connect, because if you don't connect, it's more like my story. The story I tell are basically not my story, and at the same time they are like my story. So it starts from investigative conversation, and from the investigative conversation, after sourcing my information, after my research, I don't paint. It's not like I don't paint, because after the research, if I go on my canvas, all the research I make I've actually done, they are all thrown away. So the canvas surface is more like a new word entirely for me.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by truly.
It's more like I've actually gathered this information, I already have this information, but the moment I step on that canvas, those information are not there anymore. More like my subconscious mind it already know the information it need already. So the moment I just step on that canvas, the only thing I need is the emotion just to carry out what I want on the canvas. Now subconsciously my mind starts sourcing for that information one by one, but me not knowing what I'm doing. So it's just like a new word entirely, a new dome entirely. But the moment I step out of the canvas, a new ritual starts for me again. So like I just start looking at the research I've done before, start comparing the work. So from the beginning, the main process starts from the beginning of my research, and the other process ends after my painting.
Okay, aside from research, is there any other, like a few more particular rituals you get into before painting?
More like playing with my schedule. I could do close to 10 to 20 or 100 paintings before making one painting. Yeah, it's all read letters. I usually get letters from people. So I have
fun letters.
I usually volunteer in the hospital. So like weekend, I usually volunteer in the hospital and I introduce arts to people in the hospital, more like a therapeutic section. So when I introduce arts to them, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, send me letters of how you feel after the whole painting, or just send me any letter if you're going through anything. You need somebody to talk to me. Because it's not necessary you just write the letters down. The word is advanced already. So you just send me a message, and then I'll read that message. So sometimes when I read those messages, they become inspiration. I start feeling the emotion of the person in me. It's more like I'm taking the emotion. I become the voice that I carry the emotion. So that emotion it now transfer, because I don't want to feel depressed in any state, because I also have to be in my right mind. Because sometimes, when you're taking in people's emotion, it becomes you. They wear you. And before you know, you start having that same feeling like you're in their own shoes. You understand? So what I do is now taking that feeling to my canvas or to my sketchbook, then I start creating. Before you know, I could create tons of emotions, tons of different identity. It could be from different words the person uses in the letter, or how the person is expressing the situation. Then before you know, 20, 30, and then I get exhausted. Then okay, I've actually visualized what I want properly. Then I go to the canvas. So while I'm going to the canvas, I'm working. The title don't come immediately. The title come at the end of the painting. So that's the ritual for me. So after doing that, the next thing I do is go soak myself in water. Just to cool my nerves, because the whole process is going to be emotional for me.
I think that's why art is so relatable, because people see art and they can relate to these emotions and all of that.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Shewan, how do you handle creative blocks or lack of inspiration?
I don't think I've experienced one. Yeah, I don't think I've experienced one, because I've always engaged myself in a lot of activities. If I'm not painting, I'm either doing photography. If I'm not doing photography, I'm either sorting painting for people or either writing for people.
As an experimental artist.
Yeah. If I'm not doing any of that, I'm actually reading or researching, picking new elements for what I want to create. So a creative block for me, it's more like, it's not really actually creative block. It's not like me relaxing. I just want to take a step away from my painting. And me taking a step away from my painting is not like I'm just relaxing. I could be researching. So creative block for me is not really a big deal.
Okay, so that goes to say you are an experimental artist.
Yes.
And so how will we say you stay true to a particular identity? How would people see your work and say, oh, that's
okay. I use a style, and the style is impasto. Is it impasto or the technique? It's kind of impasto. The style is impasto. The style is expressionism, but the technique is impasto. That's the right way. And I try to use that same technique to represent my subjects and the same story I want to tell. If I'm going to be telling something different from emotion, I still use impasto and the same technique, like how I use them on my surface, on my canvas. And now at the same time, I also use the identity I use. This is Oluwaseun. This is how Oluwaseun works look like. You have to feel it. You have to feel the intensiveness of the work. You have to feel like something is pulling you in. Or if probably the painting is in the room and you walk into the room, you feel like somebody is in the room, because my work gives that feeling like somebody is there with you in the room. Until you put on the light, you realize, oh, it's just a painting. So that feeling, if you get that feeling from my work, if you get that intense look from my work, then you know it's Oluwaseun. Or the moment my work scare you, you know it's Oluwaseun. Because a lot of people say my work is scary. Why do you leave the Olo eyes? You know, people ask that question, like, the reason for the Olo eyes is for you to look deep down into their soul. Like you connect it, you know, the eyes is the windows.
We did too. So
Yes, of course. But now without the eyes. So the idea of the Olo eyes was drawn from a movie I've seen far back, Ghost Rider.
what's right?
Yeah. So you know, when you say look into my soul, so the eyes is actually Olo, and the moment you start looking deep into, you start seeing your past, everything you've done, you're seeing. So now looking into the soul of the people is more like after having that conversation with them and the eye connection, the more I'm looking deep down into their soul, and the way they feel, their emotion rise more like a goosebumps to me. So the more I'm taking them in, the more like, I don't know the expression. It just stick.
I mean, only you be able to understand it.
Exactly. So it just stay like that, and like, oh, I've seen what I'm looking for. It's what I actually need for my work. So the moment I pick that feeling, I take it to my canvas, and when you see my work, you get that same feeling.
Okay, so it's safe to say that the kind of theme or message that your artwork passes to your audience,
Yes,
emotion.
emotions. Yes, it's more like I see emotions as an identity. We don't actually identify it as an identity, but I feel like emotion should also be an identity, because the more you stay in a situation for a long period of time, that becomes your identity. If anybody's going to identify you, oh, that lady that usually smile, that guy that usually frown, because your emotion, they are not using, oh, he's dark, or he's black, the skin color, or he has a scar on his body, or he's tall, but now they're using what's your emotion. If you see an old person, you say this person is mellow. If you see a youth, you know they are very, very energized. The energy is always there. So and now that emotion becomes the identity.
Okay. I think of before the first time I actually came to your exhibition, I went with my boss of work, and he told me that I think his first introduction to your type of art was you had a collection from, you know, the NSAS time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why is that collect?
That period of time and that memory was very, very, I don't know if it all happened intentionally or maybe it was a message. I don't even know. I wasn't painting that way before. During the NSAS, I experienced the whole event, and at the end of the day, a peaceful protest became something entirely. And I also experienced a friend losing his sister all of a sudden, just for her to step out of the house and she was gone. Yeah, so you know that's feeling all together. Then I was like, I want to create something. Then I was working on a team called Rebellion, doing the ETSAS. So ETSAS was more like the reason for the petition rebellion. So when I paint my figures, I actually put some mark on the face. What fella using in his video, you create a mark on his face, more like rebellion sign, and that was how the collection just came out. And I had a discussion with a friend, may so rest in peace, It's more like a mentor. And we're having conversation. Then you saw them, I'm like, is this your new works? I say yes. I said, Seun, no, this is far different from Seun I know. You paint black figures, you paint human realism and stuff like that. Why all of a sudden abstract? I said, I think this is the best way I can connect with people and tell my story. And like, this is a new identity entirely. You could feel the emotion. You could feel more like the story I want to tell. And then he asked the question, to why do you have the old eyes? He said, I'm still trying to figure that out. Well, I think it's from a movie I've seen in the past, and I'm still drawn to that. So I had to introduce it to the paint. He said, this is very, very unique, and I think you should keep this up. Then that was how I made smaller pieces of the works. First of all, make a lot of paper works to see how the film looked. Then I make the painting. People prefer the paper works more than the actual painting, because the paper works were more like the experimental stage, more like my diary, my personal diary. So I still try to use that in any time I want to create any new works. I create paper works first, then before the main work. So the paper work is more like I want to see through into the future properly before taking it to a bigger space, and people enjoy that same feeling I'm creating on my paper work. So the canvas work. So the petition, the whole NSAS protest and the whole scene. So going to 1952, it was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to tell my story, and not just my story, because I've never told my story before. So, okay, this is an opportunity for me to tell my story and tell the story of people I've come in contact with and their life experiences.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. So from everything that you've explained, what are you more drawn to? The fact that you're an experimental artist, well, I'm sure there's a particular style of work or style of painting that you're more drawn to. Is it abstract, or is it how will I realism, or a fusion of both, basically?
I think I'm more drawn to curiosity abstract, because abstract will always want you to like, why? What's the intention of this artist? Why did he choose to put this? Why did he choose to put red here and everywhere is green? That's question, like, why is this like this? Why do you choose to paint this without no eyes? Why did you choose to paint this and the face looks so very, very like chaotic? So I feel abstract was the giveaway for me. So I feel I could pour in all thousands of message into one painting, more like simplicity in chaos. I think that's the right word to use. I have this chaotic idea, but the moment I go on the canvas, the abstract brings all together, and it becomes very, very simple and very, very unique. So instead of using thousands of words, I start using just one word to give meaning to all thousands of words. So abstract was the best of all. Realism, yes, realism could do the job, but it's not really the feel I want. It will pass the message, but not really like you having the texturized canvas. You could feel it, and you could also feel the intensity. And you could feel like, oh, the reason this artist is putting the stroke on the canvas or using the brush to make a very heavy stroke, are they intentional, or are they did they just happen coincidentally? So that's the reason. Abstract helped me pass my message properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that when people see paintings like abstract, they tend to pick up, a lot of people have different perspectives, and
most times when you ask me to tell you about my work, I don't like telling people about my work. So the first question I asked them was, the question I asked them is, what do you feel? What do you think the art of the painting is telling you? Like, then when you take a step back and you start looking at the details properly, then you're like, oh, just wow. Why do you do this? Like, why this? That though I have my meaning, the person is going to share the viewer is going to share their meaning, and like, okay, this is the reason for this painting, and now try to bring those messages together, and did they relate? It's for you. Then you're like, yes, of course. I don't know if you remember one of my paintings, White Noise.
White Noise.
Yeah.
It was on it.
Yeah, and White Noise is my own story. And you can also relate it to thousands of people's story. But the first time when I started creating the work, I was lost. So I had to just take 1,000 steps away from the painting and focus on something else. Because I wanted to create a painting people can also reflect themselves. Yes, I'm telling the story of a guy, but as a lady, you can also reflect yourself in the painting. So I actually always have that thought, okay, if I'm going to tell the story of a woman, how can a man relate to that story?
Are there any specific artists or movements that has influenced your style of work? Like a mentor or a particular artistic memory or something?
A mentor, no. I've worked with a lot of artists and I've not been in any way adopt their style. So I don't think there is any mentor. For the painting itself, maybe I've seen some paintings. Yes, I've seen some paintings. Like I could say Jackson Pollock, I could say Basquiat. They are the way they tell their story and the way they paint. Pollock, I would say Pollock is one of the biggest because I tried to recreate Pollock's work and I came across tons and tons of difficulty trying to recreate his work, and I tried to find like why did this person choose to paint this and why and what message is this trying to paint. And I also view other paintings, both realism, both impressionism and everything. And sometimes I got to realize that these paintings, they may be painted in different ways, but they tell similar stories. But now, how can you take these stories and tell them in an abstract way? You know, if I'm going to paint a realism and this person is going to paint expressionism, and we still share the same story, the same expression, but now taking it to an abstract view, how will people see the story? So that became a challenge for me. I could do that in impressionism, I could do that in realism, but now abstract. So then I started studying a lot of artists, abstract, and then I studied Samovraiti, the way he uses his colors when he paints. So now my own study is now, for me to use this color, what's the meaning of the color? And how is it going to play a role in my story? So if I'm going to use a color on my painting, there's a reason for me using that color on my painting. If I'm typically going to use red ultra, know that there's a message I'm passing with that red. So then I said, okay, this is very, very interesting. I think I'm not going to paint realism anymore now. I want something that people is going to be questioning. Shay, why do you put yellow here? Shay, why do you use red? I said, okay, red, what is the meaning of red? What can you relate red to? If I ask you what is red, what will be the first thing that will come to your mind? Of course. But you know, red could also stand for love. So now using red to tell 3 stories.
Is it weird that I talked about being just
You see?
love?
So red can also represent love. Because, okay, on Valentine's Day, you wear red. Why?
I don't wear red on Valentine's Day.
You wear white.
So
So that question was like, okay, if I'm using this color, it has its own meaning, good and bad. And then I pick that's the opposite side, and I use it to tell my story. Then I relate that color with my story before going to the canvas. Because I know the moment I get to that canvas, all that information is going to disappear. So now my subconscious mind will be the one working based on how I feel and my emotions. So I'm like, okay, yes, okay, this red could go, yellow could go, no. What will complement that red? And people is going to ask question. Maybe I could just paint red or try and just paint green and just drop green somewhere. And like, the work is already fine enough. Why do you now have to put green here? So that abstract gave me that feel. And I noticed that in almost every artist's work, they don't paint more than 2 or 3 colors. And if they're going to paint more than 3 colors, they have to use a complementary color. But me, I feel like that's rules can be broken. You can use as much as colors, you can use much grays, but at the same time, they are all connected to one another. So abstract for me was not like, okay, there was no artist to look up to. So when I paint, I do Google Lens. I Google Lens search for related artists who are doing the same thing, similar artists. Then I study their works also, without even knowing their names. But when I see the work, I say, oh yes, I know this artist, I've seen this work before. Oh yes, I know this artist. So that's what I do.
I think I'm getting to know now that a lot of artists actually do research, a lot of research.
You do. You could enjoy your work. You can enjoy the process of your work. But at the same time, you want to look, okay, who is painting like me? Who is doing like this? That's the question. When I started painting on glass, because glass was the first place I discovered myself. When I started painting on glass, the first question I asked myself, who paint on glass again? I want to know the people that have been painting on glass, and I want to see how they paint on glass. Then I got to realize these people either paint with glass paints, glass medium paints, or they paint with acrylic. It's okay, since they are painting with glass paints, me, I want to paint with oil. And I want to see that my oil is still longer than the acrylic, because the moment you pour water on acrylic, it washes off on glass. But it doesn't work like that for oil. And it is very, very difficult to use oil on glass. So how can I make this work? So that was the question I always ask myself. So if I'm going to try something new, I'll first of all look at the end product, the bad side, and I also look at the good side. And I also, okay, if anything go wrong, if this glass is going to break right now, is it an art piece or not?
I saw one of your art pieces, and like a glass art piece, and I'm like, the first thing that came to me, is this thing break? That's the end.
But that is not the end actually. It becomes piece art. It's just like when you pick the pieces. You pick the pieces and just you can still install them again. But now you're not getting another perspective view of the painting. Now that is now the bad side of the story of the painting. Yeah, and it's very, very, very interesting. So my art never just ends because it was broken. It is still
the journey continues.
The journey continues. So there's a story I don't share after I make that piece. But the moment the piece is broken, the story comes into picture. Now there's a new I'm experimenting on one recent now. I'm making two paintings in one. One painting that represents two faces, but one person. So the painting that shows the happy side and the sad side.
Does that have anything to do with psychology? Because you meant
no, more like painting sadness in a beautiful way. There are some sad stories, but at the end of the story, there's always happy ending. There are some happy stories. At the end of the day, you will always go through rough road, and you realize after the journey, you there's always a lesson to learn, and and that is also the happy ending again. Maybe probably you get injured along the line, or you get scarred along the line. Those are lessons to be learned, and those lessons become something useful for the future. So that is what I question in my work, and try to put, okay, what is hope? What is the meaning of hope to you? So I'm bringing hope to a fragile surface. Hope is very, very fragile. Hope can just come and disappear. So imagine you have the glass and the glass break. That is hope.
Okay, so you spoke about challenge or like challenges. I want to touch on that a little bit.
Anything?
What do you like? Do you experience challenges during maybe your art pieces, when making your art pieces? What type of challenges do you go through as an artist during your artistic journey when it began? Like,
God, it's not easy to keep up with the standard of living. As an artist, you want to eat good food. That is very, very, for me, it is very, very important. You must stuff your house with food. And again, artists find it difficult to have a space for them to create. So maybe they are creating from the backyard of their house, or from a little space of their house. You don't have enough space, enough air, ventilation to create your work. So that's one major problem. The kind of the community we are today, it's more of the functional arts, not of the art for arts. people want to use art that they can use, not something they can just take to their house and hang. But I'm happy today now, like the whole idea is changing. But you can't, the idea can't just change all of a sudden. It's still more like, more printed on Africans, that the kind of art we really appreciate must be functional art. Not like the whites, that they could take art and just, because they know what they're using it for. But we, right from time, everything we use is functional. Even from the Benin marks, it is functional. There's a reason why they do the Benin heads, because they want to use it to remember the obas. So it actually play a role in the palace. The art that they do back then from the western part of Nigeria, and they carve the doors. There's a reason for the doors to be like that, because they know they don't have time to be putting this on the wall, this on the wall. But that door, when you see the door, this is from this clown, this is this family. Symbolism. So that's the reason. So the challenge we are now facing now is more like the space, the fund, no program to help encourage artists, even emerging artists. I was lucky to be in a competition that was last week, and I enjoyed myself. Even I didn't win, but the process, because getting to see something new, and it's engaging artists from everywhere in Africa, and for them to engage themselves in, it's a very good idea. But because if you don't have something that encourages them to create more, that is more reason some artists will just abandon art and probably chase after graphic design or digital marketing or stuff like that, just to make end. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to eat and be responsible for your family or responsible for yourself.
Okay, but have you ever gotten into that, like bridging the gap between art and technology?
I've been trying to explore the gap between art and technology, and for some reasons, I've not been able to do it. Though I've been talking to some of my friends about it, but it's still in process. But I've not actually really tuned into it properly. Yeah, but hopefully, I'm trying to create something. It's more like an instrumental painting, installation painting, and I'm trying to also use the influence of technology to also achieve that. It's more like a virtual reality. You see the painting live, now then you also see the virtual reality of the painting. It's more like you're going within two worlds. You can actually see it, you visualize the painting where you go around like a 3D kind of. It's painting.
I'm very, very much familiar with that.
Yeah, it's painting. It's not like I'm going to sculpt anything. It's still going to be oil painting or acrylic painting. But the way they'll be molded and installed, make you look like, oh, how did this person achieve this? More like a virtual reality. Like you can go into the mind of the person. So that's the feel.
Okay. I like the fact that you touched on the challenges that most artists face, because people just go to exhibitions and they see artworks, they meet artists. They don't really process that most of these artists go through.
They don't.
Yes, challenges like that, like not having space, and it's I think it's something that we need to work on as a community, like being a part of the art community, to give people the opportunity to be able, like you mentioned before when we were talking time before, said your studio is like you made it a space where you can invite people to come and create, and I think that's actually awesome. That's very, very awesome. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you. So how do you deal with negative criticism, in fact, for where people see your artwork and they tell you, oh, this artwork is also right, so you didn't use the right materials to portray the right kind of message from the art piece? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, you feel worrisome. At the same time, you just have to just take it all in, because that's the best way for you to improve. So if someone comes to my painting like, oh, Shil, I feel like you can do better, and this is not really feeling like what we wanted to feel like, I take that information and like, okay, what is that? Can I ask myself?
Hey, with all of this in mind, does this affect how you price your artwork?
It doesn't affect the way you price your artwork, and sometimes sometimes artists don't price their artwork themselves. Sometimes it shouldn't be that way. Artists should price their artwork, but the system is built on your collectors price your artwork, or the galleries telling you the price of your artwork. But you should know the price of your artwork. You should know your value of your artwork.
So, Mr. Shewa, it's time for our this or that session.
Hope I'm safe.
It's fun. Canvas or paper?
Canvas.
Text or calls?
Calls. I prefer calls than this. Get bored.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Road or air?
Road.
Marvel or DC?
DC.
This Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Batman. Books or movies?
Books.
Wine or beer?
Wait, go back to that one.
Books or movies?
Movies. I think I'm going to go with movies. Because most of my inspiration are drawn from movies.
Football or basketball?
Basketball.
Wine or beer?
Wine.
Oil or acrylic?
Oil.
Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Classical music or Afropop?
Afro.
You mentioned giving artists opportunities to grow because there's not a lot of that, most especially in the art community in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be the best advice to give to emerging artists that you can just tell them?
Okay, the best advice I will give to emerging artists, at first, to go under an artist, like an older artist, and go learn from them, work with them. Not necessarily they are your mentor, but just go under them and learn. You could just pick one artist. You could pick one artist, or you feel your kind of personality, or your kind of the way you want to carry yourself. Because I see myself as a brand, so I want to carry myself as a brand, and I choose the kind of people I want to move with, the kind of artist. That was the reason I picked Ayola. Because Ayola don't just paint alone; it works with different kind of brands. Work with I'm just saying Adidas. So because he sees himself as a brand, not just a painter alone. So my advice to younger artists is look for artists who have the same, who you see yourself like your role in the community could be like, and how do you see your art? So go under them, learn from them. It's not necessarily you adopt their style, but learn the way they do their business, the way they talk about their works, the way they research on their work. Not all artists research on their work. Some are just inspiration. Some they dream about it. Ayola dreams about his works. So when he dreams, he goes on canvas. So you find your own niche. Okay, and then you those little information being shared. You also try to connect with them. Don't go into a space and just start looking. If it's an exhibition, don't just look because it's an exhibition. Connect with people around you. Connect with the gallerists. Connect with the curator. I think you see my work because I feel my work is similar to what you're showing. I don't know, maybe if you have another opportunity, let me know. You put yourself out there. Don't let anybody come give you an handout. Nobody's gonna give you an handout. So you have to go out of your comfort zone. It's not like you're a beggar. You're not a beggar. Because most people see artists as a beggar, but you're not. And not because you're cheap. You're not cheap. You're valued. So you also treat yourself as that valuable gift.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cheryl. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another session of Create and Creating.